6-year-old girl sells her only doll for food, but the store owner discovers and... Little Emma entered the grocery store with hesitant steps, clutching her only companion to her chest. The store owner, Mr. Richard, known in the neighborhood for being strict about payments, barely looked up from the counter. "Mister, do you want to buy my doll?" the girl asked in a shaky voice. Richard stopped counting the bills and looked at the child for the first time. She was a blonde girl of about 6, wearing a worn wool hat and clothes that had seen better days. In her arms was a rag doll with yellow yarn hair. "Get out of here, kid. This isn't a thrift store," he replied impatiently, turning his attention back to the money. "Please, mister, I need food. I haven't eaten in 2 days," Emma insisted, stepping closer to the counter. The child's words made Richard look up again. There was something in her voice that unsettled him, a sincerity that cut like a knife, but he'd fallen for similar stories before. "Everyone needs money, kid. If you can't pay, you can't take anything from here." "But I have something," Emma said, holding up the doll. "She's worth a lot. My grandma said she was special." Richard sighed heavily. At 52, he'd seen it all in that grocery store in the Flower Garden neighborhood, on the outskirts of New York City. Kids asking for credit, adults making excuses, promises never kept. "Listen, little one, that doll isn't even worth the cheapest loaf of bread I have here." "But I need to bring food home." Emma's voice began to tremble. "My little brothers are waiting." From the back of the store, Mrs. Susan, Richard's wife, watched the scene while organizing the shelves. She'd noticed something about the doll that her husband hadn't. It was well made, with details you didn't see in cheap toys. "Richard, let me see that doll," Susan said, approaching. "Don't you start too, Susan. We've helped plenty of people and only gotten burned." Susan ignored her husband and crouched down to Emma's level. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emma Marie Johnson." "That's a beautiful name. And where do you live?" "On the back street, in the blue house with the broken gate." Susan knew the house. It was one of the humblest in the area, home to a family that had been struggling for a long time. "And your mum, where is she?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "In the hospital. She's really sick. Daddy went far away to work so he could get money for her medicine." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. Richard felt a tightness in his chest, but fought the urge to soften. He had a business to run and couldn't support every needy person in the neighborhood. "Susan, don't start. We're not a bank, we're not a charity." "But Richard, look at this child. She's malnourished." Indeed, Emma was too thin for a 6-year-old. Her hat partially hid a pale face with eyes too big for her small head. "Mister, I know how to do math," Emma suddenly said. "If you give me food, I can help in the store." Richard laughed dryly. "Math? You can't even read yet." "Yes, I can. Mommy taught me. Want to see?" Emma looked around and spotted a price sign. 3 5-pound bags of rice cost $45. Each one is $15, she said naturally. Silence fell over the grocery store. Richard and Susan exchanged surprised glances. "How do you know that?" Susan asked. "Mommy was a teacher. She taught me every day before she got sick. I can read, write, and do math. I also know how to help take care of the house." "How old are your brothers?" Susan wanted to know. "Michael is 4 years old, Isabella is 2.5, and David is just a little 1-year-old. I take care of them by myself when Daddy isn't here." The revelation hit like a bombshell. A 6-year-old child caring alone for 3 younger siblings, while the father worked away and the mother was hospitalized. "How long have you been taking care of them by yourself?" asked Susan, her voice full of concern. "Since Daddy left, about 3 weeks ago." 3 weeks? Richard couldn't hide his shock. "And who's watching them now?" "I left them sleeping. I told them I'd get food and come right back." Susan's heart raced. 4 children alone at home, the oldest just 6 years old. "Emma, are you sure your siblings are safe?" "Yes, they are. I locked the door and left water and the last of the crackers we had, but it all ran out this morning." Richard ran a hand over his face, feeling the weight of the situation. No matter how hard he tried to stay tough, he couldn't ignore the reality before him. "Susan, call Sylvia from the church. She knows about these things." "No!" Emma cried, frightened. "Please don't call anyone. They'll separate us. I take good care of my siblings, I swear." The child began to sob desperately, clutching her doll even tighter to her chest. "I just want food. If you don't want my doll, I'll go somewhere else." Emma turned to leave, but Susan gently held her arm. "Wait, sweetheart. No one's going to separate you. We just want to help." "Everyone says that, but then they take the kids away," Emma hiccuped. "The lady from the yellow house said if I didn't get food soon, she'd call the people who take children." Susan looked at her husband with an expression he knew well, the same one she wore when she'd made up her mind, and nothing in the world could change it. "Richard, grab a bag and put in some basics. Rice, beans, milk." "Susan, for heaven's sake, Richard Robert Johnson," she said, using his full name. It meant there was no room for argument. This child needs help now. As the two argued, Emma stayed silent, watching everything carefully. She'd learned from a very young age to read adults' expressions, to understand when she was in danger, or when she could trust. "Miss Susan," she said softly, "did you know my mom?" Susan paused mid-argument with her husband. "What's her name, sweetheart?" "Anna Marie Johnson. She used to teach at the neighborhood school." The name struck Susan like lightning. Anna Marie had been her classmate in their youth, one of the kindest people she'd ever known. "Good heavens. Anna is your mother?" "You know her?" "Yes, sweetheart. We were schoolmates a long time ago. How didn't I recognize you before?" "Mommy said I take after Daddy more. She's dark-haired and I'm blonde." Susan felt tears well up. Anna Marie had been the one who helped her when she repeated sophomore year, who patiently explained math, who never gave up on her. "Richard, come here," she called urgently. "What now?" "Remember Anna, the one I always talk about? My school friend?" "Yeah, so?" "She's Emma's mother." Richard stopped in his tracks, absorbing the information. He'd heard Susan speak of Anna hundreds of times in their 20 years of marriage, how she'd helped Susan with her studies, how she'd been a true friend, how she'd always wanted to find her again. "You sure?" "Yes. Anna Marie Johnson, teacher. How many could there be?" Emma watched the conversation without fully understanding what was happening, but she sensed something had changed. "So you'll help me?" "Sweetheart, we'll do more than that. You'll tell us everything that's going on and we'll fix this." Richard let out a deep sigh. When fate knocked on the door like that, there was no ignoring it. "All right, but first I want to get a good look at this doll." Emma hesitated for a moment before handing the doll to Richard. He took it carefully, examining the details. It was really well made, with hand stitching and quality materials. "Did your grandma make this for you?" "No, she bought it at a fancy store. She said it was special, that I should keep it forever." "Where's your grandma now?" "She passed away last year," Emma said, lowering her head. "But before she left, she gave me the doll and told me some important things." "What kind of things?" "That if our family ever faced real hardship, the doll would help. I didn't really understand, but she said I should never let anyone open Sunny." "Sunny is the doll's name?" "Yes, because of her light hair." Richard examined the doll more closely. There was something odd about the base, as if the stitching was different from the rest. "Emma, do you mind if I take a closer look at the doll? I won't damage anything." "Why do you want to look?" "Just to understand better what your grandma meant." The girl thought for a moment. "You can look, but be careful. And give it back to me, okay?" "Of course." Richard turned the doll upside down and noticed the stitching at the base was indeed different. It looked like it had been opened and re-sewn. "Susan, come see this." "What is it?" "This stitching here, it looks like there's something inside." Emma immediately tensed up. "No! Grandma said never to open it." "Easy, sweetheart. If your grandma said the doll would help your family in hard times, maybe this is what she meant. But what if I disobey her? What if she gets mad at me from heaven?" Susan knelt beside Emma. "Honey, your grandma loved you very much, right?" "She did. She took care of me when Mum was at work. Then she wanted what was best for you. If she said the doll would help when you needed it, it's because she knew that day would come. And today is that day." Emma looked at the doll in her hands, then at Susan, then at Richard. "Do you promise you'll really help me?" "We promise," Susan said, taking the girl's hand. "And you'll give Sonny back to me afterward?" "Of course," Richard replied. "Then, okay, but be careful." Richard took a small pair of scissors from the counter drawer and carefully snipped a few stitches. Immediately, he could feel paper inside. "There's definitely something here." Very gently, he widened the opening and pulled out a small plastic envelope. Inside were folded documents and some bills. "Good heavens," Susan murmured. Emma's eyes widened. "Grandma hid money in Sonny." "Seems so, sweetheart. Let's see what else is here." Richard unfolded the documents carefully. They were official papers, with stamps and signatures. Even though he didn't fully understand what he was reading, he could tell they were important. "Susan, do you know about papers like these?" "Let me see," she said, adjusting her glasses. While Susan examined the documents, Richard counted the money. It was $500 in 20s and 50s. "Emma, this will solve your family's food problem for a good while." "Really? Grandma left all this for us?" "Looks like it. But there's more here. Susan, did you figure anything out?" "Richard, it's a land deed." "What do you mean?" "These papers prove Emma's family owns a plot of land here in the neighborhood." "What land?" Susan searched for the address in the documents. "According to this, it's that empty lot on the corner of Main Street and the Avenue." Richard knew the place well. It was a large plot that had been abandoned for years, overgrown with weeds and trash. Must not be worth much then. "Might not be the case, Richard. Remember, they've been talking about building a big supermarket there on the Avenue." Indeed, there were rumors that a major supermarket chain was interested in setting up in the area. If true, a plot of land in that location could be worth a lot of money. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing, "Emma," Susan said gently, "did you know your family owned a piece of land?" "Land? What do you mean?" "A plot that belongs to you." "No, Daddy never mentioned anything like that." "What about your mother?" "She didn't either. They just said we were poor and had to work hard to get by." Richard and Susan exchanged glances. Something was off here. If the family really owned land, why were they struggling? "Sweetheart," Susan said, "did your grandmother tell you anything else about those papers?" "She said they were important family things going back to Grandpa's time. She told me I'd understand when I grew up." "And your father never mentioned your grandfather?" "Daddy doesn't like talking about Grandpa. He always gets sad when someone asks." A pattern was forming in Richard's mind. It seemed there were family secrets even Emma's own parents didn't know. "Susan, I think we need to understand this better before doing anything." "I agree." "Emma, do you remember anything else your grandmother told you?" "She said there were bad people who wanted to take our family's things. That's why she hid the papers in Sonny, because no one would suspect." "Bad people like who?" "I don't know. She sometimes whispered with Mommy and I couldn't understand." Just then, the grocery store door opened and a well-dressed man in a suit and tie walked in. He glanced around, paying special attention to the conversation at the counter. "Good afternoon," he said, approaching. "I was looking for information about land in the area." Richard immediately grew suspicious. The timing was too coincidental. "What kind of information?" "I'm a real estate agent. I have clients interested in investing in the neighborhood," the man replied, handing over a card. "Charles Edward Smith from Johnson Real Estate." Susan discreetly gathered the documents on the counter, but not before Charles noticed. "I see you're handling property paperwork. If you need help appraising or selling, I can assist." "No, thank you," Richard said curtly. Charles noticed Emma and the doll in her hands. "What a lovely doll. Is it yours, little girl?" Emma instinctively hid behind Susan. "Yes," Susan answered for her. "It looks old. These kinds of toys can be worth a lot to collectors. If you'd like to sell—" "It's not for sale," Richard interrupted. "Understood. Well, I'll leave my card in case you change your mind about anything." Charles left the store, but not without one last glance at the documents and Emma. "That man gave me the creeps," Susan said as soon as he was gone. "Me too. Showed up at just the right time." "Mrs. Susan," Emma whispered, "I think I've seen that man before." "Where?" "Near our house. He was talking to a neighbor about empty lots." The situation was getting more complicated. Richard checked his watch and saw it was past 2 in the afternoon. "Emma, your siblings must be worried. How about we go to your house to check on them?" "You'll really come with me?" "Of course. And we'll bring enough food for a few days." "What about Sunny?" "She'll go with you, dear. I'll just stitch her up properly first." While Susan packed a bag with basic groceries, Richard carefully placed the documents back inside the doll and sewed the opening shut. The money he gave separately to Emma. "Keep this very safe, okay? It's for emergencies." "Thank you, Mr. Richard. You're both so kind." "We're doing what's right, Emma. Your grandmother was a wise woman." The three left the grocery store together, Richard carrying 2 heavy bags and Susan holding Emma's hand. The walk to the blue house with the broken gate took only 5 minutes. The house was truly humble, needing repairs in several places. The iron gate was crooked, and the blue paint was peeling in spots. "Michael, Isabella, David," Emma called out as she opened the door. "I brought food." From inside came shouts of joy and the sound of little feet running. 3 children appeared at the door, all very thin and wearing worn-out clothes. Michael, 4 years old, looked just like Emma but with dark hair. Isabella, 2.5, had golden curls and big eyes. David, the 1-year-old baby, crawled after his siblings, smiling. "Emma, I was hungry," Michael said, hugging his sister. "I know, little Mike, but look," she said, showing the bags. "I brought lots of food." "And who are these people?" Michael asked, eyeing Richard and Susan suspiciously. "They're friends. They knew Mom." "Is Mom coming back?" Isabella asked in her sweet voice. "Not yet, Princess, but she'll get better soon and come home." Susan felt her heart break, seeing the children's condition. The house was clean but nearly empty, with only the bare essentials for survival. "Richard," she whispered, "these kids need so much more than food." "I know, Susan, but let's take it slow. First, we need to understand the whole situation." Emma gathered her siblings in the small living room and started distributing the food. "I'll make rice and eggs for everyone," she announced. "Let me do it, sweetheart," Susan said. "You must be tired." "No need, Mrs. Susan. I know how. Mom taught me before she went to the hospital." "How long has your mother been hospitalized, Emma?" Richard asked. 2 months. At first she was sick at home, then she went to the hospital. Dad said it was so she'd get better fast." "And your father? How long has he been away?" "He left 3 weeks ago. Said he was going to work on a construction site in another city to make money quickly." "Does he call you?" "He did at first, but it's been over a week since we heard from him." The situation was becoming more concerning. Richard decided he needed to investigate further. "Emma, do you have the phone number for the hospital where your mother is?" "Yes, it's stuck on the fridge." Richard went to the kitchen and found a paper with the number for St. Joseph's Community Hospital. He decided to call. "Hello, I'd like to check on a patient there, Anna Marie Johnson." There was a pause on the other end. "One moment, please." After a few minutes, the nurse returned to the phone. "Patient Anna Marie Johnson was discharged 5 days ago." Richard froze. "Discharged? Is she okay?" "Yes, sir. She fully recovered from pneumonia and was released. Her husband came to pick her up." "Her husband? Are you sure?" "Yes, it's in the records. Paul Robert Johnson." Richard hung up, completely confused. If Anna Marie had been discharged 5 days ago and her husband picked her up, where were they? Why had they left the children alone? "Susan," he called softly, "we need to talk." They stepped into the backyard. "What is it?" "Emma's mother was discharged 5 days ago. Her father went to get her from the hospital." "What? Then where are they?" "I don't know, but something very strange is going on here. Do you think they abandoned the kids? I don't know what to think. But 4 children don't stay alone for 5 days without their parents knowing." Back in the living room, they found Emma serving rice and eggs to her siblings. They all ate hungrily, as if they hadn't seen food in a long time. "Emma," Richard said gently, "I need to ask you something important." "Go ahead. When was the last time you spoke with your father or your mother?" With Dad, it's been a week. With Mum. She paused to think. Oh, it's been a long time, since before she went to the hospital. And neighbors, did anyone come by to check on you? Mrs. Rose from next door asked yesterday if everything was okay. I said yes. Emma, are you sure your father is working out of town? Yes. He said he was going to a faraway city. And he didn't tell you when he'd be back? He said when he saved up enough money, about 2 weeks. Richard realized he needed to have a serious talk with the girl, but without frightening the other children. Susan, stay here with the little ones. Emma, come outside with me. I want to show you something. In the backyard, Richard crouched down to her level. Emma, you're a very smart girl, aren't you? Mom always said so. Then you'll understand what I'm about to tell you. I called the hospital where your mother was staying. And? They said she's already been discharged, that your father picked her up 5 days ago. Emma fell silent for a long moment, processing the information. But if Mom left the hospital, why didn't she come home? That's what we need to find out, sweetheart. Do you think they're looking for a better house for us to live in? Maybe, Emma. But the important thing is that you and your siblings won't be alone anymore. Are you going to take care of us? We'll help until we find out where your parents are. Emma hugged Richard tightly. Thank you, Mr. Richard. I was so scared. You don't have to be afraid anymore, okay? Back in the house, Richard and Susan made plans for the night. They couldn't leave 4 children alone, but they also didn't want to involve authorities until they understood the situation better. Susan, you stay here with them tonight. I'll go home and come back early tomorrow. All right, but tomorrow we need to look further into this story about the documents. I agree, and also find out where these children's parents are. When night fell, Susan helped the children bathe and get ready for bed. The house had only 2 small rooms. The 4 children slept on 2 mattresses on the floor of one room. Mrs. Susan, Emma said before falling asleep, thank you for staying with us. You're welcome, sweetheart. Sleep well. Mrs. Susan? Yes? Do you think Mom and Dad are okay? Susan felt a lump in her throat. I'm sure they are, dear. And they'll be back soon. The next morning, Richard arrived early with fresh bread and milk. The children woke up more cheerful, especially after a full breakfast. Emma, he said, today I'm taking you with me to sort out some things about your grandmother's documents. What about my siblings? They'll stay with Mrs. Susan. She'll take good care of them. Can I take Sonny with me? Of course you can. The two headed toward the city center. Richard had decided to visit a notary's office to better understand the documents found in the doll. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. At the notary's office, Dr. Augustus examined the documents carefully. These documents are legitimate, he said. They prove the ownership of the land under the name of John Johnson, who would be my grandfather, Emma finished. Exactly, and according to succession laws, the property passes to his children, which would be Emma's father, Richard said. Correct. But there's something interesting here. I see there was an attempt to transfer the property a few months ago. What do you mean? Someone tried to transfer the land to a company, but the transfer was contested due to insufficient documentation. What company? Dr. Augustus checked the records. Johnson Enterprises, LLC. The legal representative is Charles Edward Smith. Richard and Emma exchanged glances. It was the same man who had appeared at the grocery store the day before. Doctor, does this mean someone tried to steal the family's land? It's a possibility. Without the original documents which you have there, it would be hard to prove ownership. And how much is that land worth today? Well, considering it's in a developing area, I'd say it's worth at least $200,000. Emma's eyes widened. $200,000? Is that a lot of money? Yes, it's a lot of money, dear, replied Richard, still processing the information. So Grandma really saved us, said Emma, hugging her doll. On the way back, Richard tried to piece together the puzzle in his mind. A poor family, owners of valuable land, a broker trying to take over the property, parents who had mysteriously disappeared. Emma, did your father ever work in construction? Yes, he's a bricklayer, but he always had trouble finding work. And does he know this Charles Edward? I don't know. I've never heard of him. Let's go home and talk to Mrs. Susan. She might have found something out. Back at the Blue House, they found Susan playing with the 3 children in the backyard. She looked worried. Richard, I'm glad you're back. We need to talk. What happened? Mrs. Rose, the neighbor next door, came by. She told me some interesting things. Like what? She saw Emma's parents leaving the house last week with suitcases. She thought they were going on a trip, but they never came back. They left together. Yes, and she thought it was strange because they left the children behind. Anything else? She said some men in suits showed up here a few times asking about the family. They wanted to know about documents and property. The story was becoming clearer and more concerning. It seemed Emma's parents had been forced to leave, possibly because of the land. Susan, we found out that Charles Edward tried to take over the family's land months ago. How? He tried to transfer the ownership, but he couldn't because he didn't have the original documents, which were hidden in the doll. Exactly. Emma's grandmother was very clever. Emma listened to the conversation with growing attention. Mr. Richard, do you think that man did something to my parents? We don't know yet, sweetheart, but we'll find out. How? I'll talk to some people I know, and we might need to involve the police. No, Emma shouted. If we call the police, they'll take us to an orphanage. Calm down, Emma. That won't happen. We'll find your parents. Promise? I promise. That afternoon, Richard closed the grocery store early and went to gather information about Charles Edward Smith. He discovered the man had a questionable reputation in the area, always involved in shady real estate deals. He also stopped by the hospital where Anna Marie had been admitted. There he got more details about her discharge. The patient left with her husband, the nurse confirmed, but she seemed nervous. She asked about the children several times. Did she say where they were going? No, but her husband said they were going to resolve some family matters out of town. Was anyone else with them? Yes, 2 men in suits were waiting in the lobby. The picture was becoming clearer. Anna Marie and Paul had been forced to leave town, likely to be kept away from their children and the land documents. Back at the Blue House, Richard found the 4 children sleeping peacefully while Susan knitted in the living room. Did you find out anything? Yes, and it's not good news. Richard shared everything he had discovered that day. Susan listened silently, her expression growing more worried. Richard, these children are in danger. I know. If Charles Edward finds out the documents are with them, we need to protect them. I agree. But how? First, we need to find their parents. Second, we need to make sure the land is properly registered in the family's name. And if the parents don't come back, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. The next morning, Emma woke up earlier than her siblings and found Richard and Susan whispering in the kitchen. Good morning, she said, still holding her doll. Good morning, sweetheart. Did you sleep well? I did. I had a dream about Grandma. What do you mean? She was smiling and told me I did the right thing, that the family would be okay. Susan and Richard exchanged glances. There was a maturity in Emma's words that impressed them. Emma, Richard said, today I'll try to find out where your parents are. Do you trust me? I do. Then I need you to stay here with your siblings and Mrs. Susan. Don't leave the house for any reason, understand? I understand. But what if those men show up here? If any strangers come, hide in the back room and don't make a sound. Okay. During the day, Richard visited several places looking for information about Charles Edward and his company. He discovered that Charles had been involved in other cases of fraudulent property seizures. By late afternoon, he got a call from an unknown number. Hello? Mr. Richard? It's Paul, Emma's father. Paul, where are you? The kids are worried. I know, Mr. Richard. I'm in a town about 120 miles from here. Anna is with me. What happened? Why did you leave the city? We had no choice. Some men showed up at the hospital and said if we didn't go with them, they'd hurt the children. What men? I don't know their names, but they said we had something that belonged to them. The land deeds. How do you know that? It's a long story. The kids are safe, Paul. They're with me and my wife. Thank God. I didn't know what to do. They said they'd hurt the children if we didn't hand over the inheritance papers. What papers? Did you know about the land? No, I didn't. My mother never told me anything. I only found out after those men showed up. Paul, where exactly are you? At a boarding house in Yonkers. The men brought us here and told us to stay quiet. Are they there with you now? No. They said they'd come back once they got the documents. Paul, listen carefully. You and Anna need to come back to New York City right now. How? They took our IDs and all the money we had. I'll come get you. Give me the address of the boarding house. But what if they find out? Leave that to me. Just come home. After hanging up, Richard immediately called Susan to share the news. Thank God. The kids will be so happy. Susan, I'm going to pick them up tonight. Stay there with the children and don't let anyone in. Be careful, Richard. I will. And if that Charles Edward shows up, call the police right away. The trip to Yonkers took nearly 3 hours in the heavy afternoon traffic. Richard found Paul and Anna at a modest boarding house in the city center. Both looked visibly shaken and thinner. Mr. Richard, Anna hugged him with tears in her eyes. Thank you for taking care of my children. Don't mention it, Anna. Do you know me? Of course I do. You're Susan's husband, my old school friend. That's right. Now let's get out of here before those men come back. They said they'd search our house for the documents, Paul said. They won't find anything there. The papers are in a safe place. What do you mean? On the way back, Richard told the whole story. How Emma had tried to sell her doll, how they'd found the hidden documents, and how she'd taken care of her siblings alone. My little girl, Anna cried. She's too young to go through all this. She's very brave, Anna, and very smart. Takes after me, Paul said proudly. Anna was always the teacher of the family. Now we need to settle this land situation once and for all. How? First, you'll officially register the property. Then, if you want to sell, you'll do it the right way with a lawyer and everything. We don't have money for a lawyer, said Anna. We'll figure it out. What matters is that the family stays united and safe. When they arrived at the Blue House, it was already past 9 at night. The children were ready for bed when they heard familiar voices at the door. Mommy, Daddy, Emma shouted, running to hug her parents. My girl. Anna picked her up and cried. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm sorry for leaving you all alone. It's okay, Mommy. I took care of everyone. Michael, Isabella, and David also ran to hug their parents. It was an emotional scene that made Susan and Richard tear up as well. Daddy, said Emma, Grandma left a surprise for us. What do you mean, sweetheart? Sunny had a secret. She had important papers and money. Paul and Anna looked shocked at Richard, who nodded in confirmation. Your mother was very smart, Paul. She knew this inheritance would be important for the family one day. I had no idea, said Paul. She never told me. She probably wanted to protect you. If you didn't know, no one could force you to give it up. So now, what do we do? Asked Anna. Now you rest. Tomorrow we'll sort everything out. Mr. Richard, said Emma, can I ask you something? Of course, dear. Are you still going to be our friend even now that Mommy and Daddy are back? Forever, Emma. You're part of our family now. Anna took Susan's hand. Susan, I don't know how to thank you for what you've done for my children. No need to thank me, Anna. That's what friends do. The next morning, the whole family gathered to decide what to do with the land. The documents had been kept in a safe place at the bank, and Richard had consulted a trusted lawyer. Dr. Ferdinand said the process will be simple, explained Richard. Since you have the original documents, it's just a matter of registration. And what if this Charles tries something? Asked Paul. The lawyer said if he approaches you again, he could be arrested for coercion. And the land? Is it really worth $200,000? Asked Anna. It could be worth more. A big company is interested in buying land in the area to build a shopping center. I never dreamed of so much money, said Paul. With this money you could buy a better house, invest in the children's education, start your own business, suggested Susan. I want to keep studying to be a teacher like Mommy, said Emma. And you will, sweetheart. Now we can give you the best education. A week later, the land documents were all in order. The big company interested in the shopping center made an offer of $350,000 for the land. "It's a very good offer," said the lawyer. "You can accept it, or wait to see if a better one comes along." "What do you all think?" Paul asked the family. "I think we should accept," said Anna. "It's more money than we'll need." "I agree," said Emma. "That way we can help other people too." The wisdom of the 6-year-old girl impressed everyone. With the sale of the land, the family's life changed completely. They bought a new house in the same neighborhood to stay close to Richard and Susan. Paul started a small construction business, and Anna went back to teaching at a private school. Emma got her own room but still slept with her Sunny doll every night. "Sunny," she whispered before bed, "thank you for keeping Grandma's gift safe. Now our family is together again." 6 months after the whole adventure, Richard was in his grocery store when he saw Emma coming in with a bag in her hand. "Hi, Mr. Richard." "Hi, sweetheart. What brings you here today?" "I brought something for you and Mrs. Susan." Emma took a new doll out of the bag, just like Sunny but with colorful clothes. "I bought it with the money I saved from my allowance. It's for Mrs. Susan, so she won't feel lonely when you don't have grandchildren around." Richard felt his eyes fill with tears. "Emma, you didn't have to—" "Yes, I did. You took care of my family when we needed it most. Now it's my turn to give back." Susan appeared from the back of the store, and when she saw the doll, she started crying with emotion. "Sweetheart, you're an angel." "No, I'm not, Mrs. Susan. I'm just a girl who learned that we have to take care of the people we love." That afternoon, the two families gathered for lunch at Anna and Paul's new house. Emma told everyone how she had decided to buy the doll for Susan. "You know what amazes me the most about this whole story," Anna said. "How my mother somehow knew that one day we'd need those documents." "Moms always know, don't they, Mom?" Emma said. "They always do, my dear." "Dad," Michael said, "when I grow up, I want to be just like Mr. Richard." "What do you mean, son?" "I want to help people who need it." "That's very sweet, Michael." "And I want to be a teacher like Mom," Isabella said. "And I'll be a doctor so I can take care of everyone," added David, who was already saying a few words. Richard looked around the table and saw a family that had risen from the ashes, a family that had learned the value of unity, courage, and kindness. "Emma," he said, "do you remember what your grandmother told you about the doll? That it would help our family when we needed it. And it really did, didn't it?" "It did. But it wasn't just the doll. It was you too. The doll had the papers, but you had the good heart. True wealth isn't in money, Emma. It's in the people we can count on." "I know, Mr. Richard. Grandma taught me that too." Months passed. The Johnson family was thriving and happy. Paul had secured several contracts for his construction company. Anna had been promoted to coordinator at the school where she worked. The children were now attending a private school and getting excellent grades. Emma, now 7 years old, had become one of the top students in her class. She always brought the Sunny doll to school, and when other students asked about it, she told them the story of how the doll had saved her family. One day, the teacher asked each student to talk about a special object they had at home. When it was Emma's turn, she stood up with Sunny in her arms. "This is Sunny," she began. "She looks like an ordinary doll, but she's actually magical." "What do you mean magical, Emma?" the teacher asked. "She doesn't do tricks like in the movies, but she kept something very important safe for my family. And when we needed it most, she helped us." "What did she keep?" "Papers that proved we owned some land. My grandma hid them inside her because she knew bad people wanted to steal from us. And what happened? One day when we had no food left at home, I went to a grocery store to try to trade Sunny for food. The store owner found the hidden papers and our lives changed forever." "How did they change?" "We sold the land and got a new house. My parents have jobs now, and I can go to a good school. But the most important thing was meeting Mr. Richard and Mrs. Susan, who became our second family." The whole classroom fell silent, moved by Emma's story. "Emma," the teacher said, "your story teaches us a very important lesson." "What?" "That sometimes the most valuable things are hidden in places we don't expect, and that there are always good people willing to help when we need it most." "That's true, Auntie. That's why I take good care of Sunny. She reminds me I should always help others too." That afternoon, when Emma came home from school, she found a surprise waiting for her. Richard and Susan were in the living room talking with her parents. "Emma!" Anna called. "Come here, sweetheart. Mr. Richard and Mrs. Susan have a proposal for you." "What proposal?" "We'd like to invite you to work at the grocery store on weekends," said Richard. "Really work?" "Of course. You can help at the register since you're good at math. And you'll earn a small salary to learn about responsibility." "Really, can I?" "Yes, you can," said Paul, "but only if it doesn't interfere with your studies." "It won't, Dad. I promise." "Then it's settled," said Susan. "You'll be our youngest employee." And so began a new chapter in Emma's life. Every Saturday she went to the grocery store and helped with customers. Soon she became beloved by the whole neighborhood who knew her story. One day an elderly woman walked into the store carrying an old doll. "I was wondering if you buy used toys," she said. "Normally we don't," Richard replied, "but let me call my doll expert." Emma approached and examined the doll. "It looks a lot like mine," she said. "Why do you want to sell it?" "My granddaughter grew up and doesn't play with it anymore. I need the money for medicine." "Have you checked if there's anything special inside it?" Emma asked. "What do you mean, dear?" "Sometimes grandmothers hide important things in their granddaughters' dolls." The woman laughed. "What a vivid imagination you have, child." "It's not imagination. It happened to me." And Emma told her story to the woman, who listened with growing interest. "Oh, could my mother have... Would you like me to help you check?" Very carefully, Emma examined the doll and found an odd seam, just like the one she had found in Sunny. "Ma'am, may I open this to look?" "Of course, dear." Inside the doll was a small key and a piece of paper with numbers. "This is a bank safe deposit box number," Richard said, examining the paper. "My mother had a safe deposit box?" the woman gasped. "It seems so. The key is to open it." 2 hours later, the woman returned to the store with tears in her eyes. "Young lady," she said to Emma, "you saved my life." "Why?" "The box had enough money for my medicine for 2 years, and even extra to help my daughter." "That's wonderful. Your grandmother was very clever too." "Thanks to you, I found out. How can I thank you?" "No need to thank me. Just pass the story along. If you meet someone with similar troubles, tell them about grandmother's dolls." From that day on, Emma's story spread through the area. She became known as the girl with the magic dolls, and many people came to her to examine old family dolls. In many cases, there was nothing hidden, but in some, Emma helped families discover small treasures that loving grandmothers had saved for hard times. Richard's grocery store became a community hub where people came not just to shop, but to hear stories of hope and kindness. 2 years after Emma first walked into the store with Sunny, her family threw a party to celebrate everything that had happened. "Emma," Anna said during the party, "do you remember how you felt that day when you came to sell the doll?" "Yes, Mom. I was so scared and so hungry." "And how do you feel today?" "I feel happy. I'm grateful, and I want to keep helping others." "That's what I wanted to hear," said Anna, hugging her daughter. "Mom?" "Yes?" "I think I understand why Grandma hid the papers in Sunny." "Why?" "Because she knew that when our family faced hard times, I'd do anything to help, even sell my most cherished doll." "And she knew good people would help you," Paul added. "Yeah, Grandma trusted people, and I learned to trust too." Richard approached the family. "Emma, I have a surprise for you." "What surprise?" "Remember that land you sold?" "I do. The mall built there wants to honor you. They're putting up a plaque telling your story and how it inspired other families in the area." "Really?" "Really. And they want to invite you to the plaque's unveiling." "Wow. Am I going to be famous?" "You already are, sweetheart," said Susan. "Famous for having a good heart." At the plaque's unveiling, dozens of local families were present. Many had been inspired by Emma's story to investigate old family heirlooms, and some had found valuable surprises. The mayor gave a speech about the importance of solidarity and hope, then invited Emma to unveil the plaque. It read, "In honor of Emma Marie Johnson, whose courage and determination inspired an entire community to believe in the goodness of people and the importance of caring for one another." "Emma," the mayor said, "would you like to say something?" Emma, now 9, took the microphone with ease. "I want to thank everyone who helped me when I needed it most, especially Mr. Richard and Mrs. Susan, who opened their homes and hearts to my family. The audience applauded. But I also want to say something important. My story isn't special because I found hidden treasure in a doll. It's special because good people chose to help me when I was in need. More applause. All of us can be like Mr. Richard and Mrs. Susan. All of us can help someone facing hard times. It doesn't have to be a lot of money. Sometimes just a plate of food, a hug, or listening to someone's problems makes a difference. The crowd was visibly moved. And to the kids watching, I want to say this. If you have old family dolls, take good care of them. Not because they might hold hidden treasures, but because they hold our grandmother's love. When Emma finished, the audience erupted in applause. Many were crying, including Richard and Susan. That night at home, Emma was playing with Sunny in her room when Anna came to say goodnight. "Sweetheart, your speech today was beautiful. Thanks, Mom. I'm so proud of you. You've grown so much these years." "Mom?" "Yes?" "Sometimes I dream about Grandma." "What does she say?" "She says she's proud of me, and that what she really wanted wasn't for us to get rich." "What did she want then?" "For us to learn the importance of family and friends." "The money was just a bonus." Anna kissed her daughter's forehead. "Your grandma chose the right granddaughter to guard her secret." "Mom?" "Yes?" "When I'm a grandma, I'll hide something special for my grandkids too." "What will you hide?" "Letters. Letters about love, friendship, and people helping each other, so they never forget that the most important thing in life is the people we love." Anna left the room with tears in her eyes and a heart full of pride. Her daughter had learned the most important lesson of all, that true wealth lies in the relationships we build and the good we do for others. Several more years passed. Emma was now in high school, always among the top students in her class. She continued working at Richard's grocery store on weekends and had become a young woman admired by the entire community. One day, a reporter from a television show showed up at the store, interested in telling Emma's story to the whole country. "I've been following your story on social media," said the reporter. "I'd like to do a feature on you." "Why is my story interesting?" asked Emma, now 15. "Because in a world where people are becoming more and more individualistic, you represent the importance of solidarity and community. But I didn't do anything extraordinary. I just accepted help from good people. And that's already much more than many people can do." The story aired on a national network and resonated across the country. Emma received hundreds of messages from people sharing their own stories of solidarity and resilience. One of the most special messages came from an 8-year-old girl from Miami. "Hi Emma, my name is Beatrice. I saw your story on TV and wanted to tell you that I found some old coins hidden in my great-grandmother's doll. With the money from selling them, my mum was able to buy my little brother's medicine. Thank you for inspiring me to look. A kiss from your friend Beatrice." Emma replied to as many messages as she could, always encouraging people to care for one another and cherish family bonds. The TV show had such an impact that Emma was invited to give talks at schools and events about solidarity and social entrepreneurship. "The secret," she would say in her talks, "isn't about finding hidden treasures. The secret is recognizing the treasures we already have, our family, our true friends, our community." At one of these talks, a businessman approached her. "Emma, I'd like to propose a partnership." "What kind of partnership?" "I want to create a foundation to help families in vulnerable situations, and I'd like you to be the ambassador for the cause." "What does that mean?" "It means you'd help identify families in need and participate in decisions about how to use the foundation's resources." Emma discussed the proposal with her family, as well as Richard and Susan. "It's a big responsibility," said Anna. "But it's a chance to help many more people," added Paul. "What do you think, Mr. Richard?" asked Emma. "I think your grandmother would be very proud. You'll be able to multiply the good she started when she hid those documents in the doll." "Then I accept," Emma decided. The Sunny Foundation, named in honor of Emma's doll, was launched a year later. Within 2 years of operation, it had already helped over 500 families across New York City. The foundation's work ranged from food baskets to microloans for small entrepreneurs, always focusing on the autonomy and dignity of the families they assisted. Emma, now a college student studying social work, dedicated all her free time to the foundation. She personally visited the assisted families and tracked their progress. One day, a special situation caught her attention. A family of Honduran immigrants had arrived in the country with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Among their few belongings was a very old doll. "This doll belonged to my grandmother," said Maria, the mother of the family. "It's the only memory I have of my country." "May I examine it?" asked Emma. Sometimes grandmothers hide special surprises for their grandchildren. With the family's permission, Emma inspected the doll and found what seemed like an unusual seam. "Would you like me to check if there's anything inside?" "Could it be something bad?" Maria asked worriedly. "No, it can't be anything bad. It can only be something your grandmother hid to help the family." Inside the doll, there were old photographs and a letter written in Spanish. "What does the letter say?" asked Emma. Maria read the letter with tears in her eyes. "My grandmother wrote that if our family ever needed to leave Honduras, she had saved information about relatives who migrated to the US many years ago." "What kind of information?" "Names, addresses. It seems we have family in New York City we didn't even know existed." With the help of the foundation, Maria managed to locate her American relatives, who welcomed her family with open arms and helped them adapt to the new country. "Emma," Maria said on the day of their family reunion, "you were an angel in our lives." "It wasn't me, Maria. It was your grandmother, who knew how to preserve what was most important, family connections. How can I thank you? Keep the chain going. When your family is settled here, help other families who arrive in the same situation as yours." And Maria kept her promise. She became a volunteer at the foundation, specifically helping immigrant families adapt to the US. Maria's story and the Honduran doll made international news, showing how a grandmother's love transcends borders and how solidarity can connect people from different countries. Emma had become a national reference in social work, but she never forgot her humble beginnings in the blue house with the broken gate. Now, at 21, with a degree in social work and a specialization in social project management, she kept her routine of visiting Richard and Susan every Sunday. "Emma," Richard said one Sunday, "do you remember when you were little and said you wanted to be a teacher?" "I do, Mr. Richard. And now, at 21, you teach much more than any teacher. You teach about life, about hope, about caring for one another." "I learned all that from you and my parents, and from your grandmother through Sunny." "That's true. Sunny taught me that the most valuable things are often hidden in simple places." "How so?" "Grandma's love was hidden in a simple doll. Your kindness was hidden in an ordinary grocery store. Our family's strength was hidden in tough times." Susan, now with gray hair but still bright-eyed, joined the conversation. "Emma, I have something for you." "What is it, Mrs. Susan?" Susan brought out a wrapped box. "Open it." Inside the box was a new doll just like Sunny, but with even more refined details. "It's beautiful, but why?" "Because one day you'll have a daughter or granddaughter, and you'll want to pass this tradition on." "I don't even have a boyfriend yet," Emma laughed. "But you will, and when you do, remember to teach your daughters the value of family, community, and solidarity." "I will. And I'll hide letters inside the doll just like I planned when I was little." "What kind of letters?" "Letters telling our family's story, how Grandma saved us by hiding documents in Sunny, how you welcomed us when we were in need, how the whole community came together to help us. That's a beautiful tradition to start. And I'll also hide a photo." "Which photo?" "A photo of all of us together on the day of the plaque unveiling, so she'll know many people loved her even before she was born." At that moment, Paul and Anna arrived with Emma's siblings, now teenagers. Michael had become an excellent student and wanted to be an engineer. Isabella dreamed of becoming a doctor. David, the youngest, wanted to follow in his big sister's footsteps and work in social work. "Family," Emma said, "I have an announcement to make." "What announcement?" asked Anna. "The Sunny Foundation received a proposal to expand to other states, and I've been invited to coordinate that expansion." "How wonderful," said Paul. "But that means I'll have to travel a lot, maybe even live in other cities for periods of time." "Emma," said Anna, "when you were little and tried to sell your doll, you showed courage to take care of your family. Now you have the chance to take care of many families. Go for it, my dear." "Are you all sure?" "Absolutely," said Richard. You were born for this, and no matter where you go, our home will always be your home. And Sunny comes with me everywhere, said Emma, hugging the doll. Of course, she's your journey companion. 2 years later, the Sunny Foundation was present in 12 US states and had helped over 5,000 families. Emma had become one of the most respected social workers in the country. In every city where the foundation was established, Emma shared her story, always emphasizing that anyone can make a difference in someone's life. One day, during a talk in Chicago, an elderly woman approached her. "Sweetheart," the woman said, "your story moved me deeply." "Why?" "Because I also hid something special for my granddaughter, but she passed away before she could find it. I'm so sorry for your loss. I'd like to donate what I hid for her to your foundation. You don't have to feel obligated, but I want to. They're some old family jewels. If they can't help my granddaughter, let them help other girls." The woman's donation provided enough resources for the foundation to help 50 families that year. "Ma'am," Emma said when receiving the donation, "your granddaughter may no longer be here, but the love you have for her will help many others." "That's what I hope, dear, that's what I hope." Stories like this repeated constantly. Emma's narrative had inspired thousands to revisit their family traditions and find ways to help their communities. At 25, Emma received the most special invitation of her career to speak before Congress about public policies for families in social vulnerability. On the day of her presentation, she brought Sunny with her into the chamber. "Honorable representatives and senators," she began, "today I've brought a doll with me. To many it may seem inappropriate to bring a toy into such a serious setting, but this doll represents something very important: the wisdom of our grandmothers and the strength of our families." The chamber fell into absolute silence. "When I was 6 years old, this doll saved my family from hunger and separation, not because it was magical, but because my grandmother had the wisdom to hide documents inside it that proved our inheritance. But the most important part wasn't the documents. The most important part was finding people willing to help a desperate child. People who weren't rich, who had no obligation to help me, but who had something far more valuable: compassion. Today, through the Sunny Foundation, we've helped over 10,000 families across the US. And every one of those families was saved by the same thing that saved mine: good people willing to lend a hand. Public policies are important, but they only work when there's a network of solidarity in the community. When there are people like Mr. Richard and Mrs. Susan who open their homes and hearts to those in need. So my request to you is simple: create policies that strengthen communities, encourage solidarity, and value family and neighborhood bonds. Because in the end, what saves a struggling family isn't just money or official assistance. It's knowing they're not alone, that they're part of a community that cares for their well-being. When Emma finished speaking, the chamber erupted in applause. Several representatives approached her to congratulate her and offer support for the foundation's projects. That night, in her hotel room in Washington, D.C., Emma called home. "Hello, Mr. Richard." "Emma, how did the presentation go?" "It went really well. I talked about your grocery store at Congress." "My grocery store?" Richard laughed. "I told them it was there that I learned there are good people in the world willing to help a hungry child." "Oh, Emma, you were always too special for a neighborhood grocery store." "No, Mr. Richard, your grocery store was always too special for the world. That's where it all began." "And how's Sunny?" "She's fine, always with me, always reminding me where I came from and where I want to go." "And where do you want to go?" "I want to reach a world where no child has to sell their doll to get food, where no family has to separate because of a lack of opportunities." "You'll make it, Emma. Your grandmother chose the right granddaughter to carry on her mission." Today, at 30 years old, Emma is considered one of the leading figures in social assistance in Brazil. The Sunny Foundation operates in every state and has already helped over 50,000 families. She married Robert, a doctor she met during one of the foundation's projects, and they have a 2-year-old daughter named Claire in honor of the Sunny doll. Emma still lives in New York City, in the same neighborhood where she grew up, in a house 2 blocks from Richard and Susan's grocery store. Every Sunday, 4 generations of the family gather: Anna and Paul, now proud grandparents; Emma and Robert, devoted parents; Michael, Isabella and David, loving uncles and aunt. And little Claire, who already shows signs of the same intelligence and sensitivity as her mother. And Richard and Susan are always there. They never had biological children, but gained a huge family through love. Claire, Emma says to her daughter in her arms, one day I'll tell you the story of the Sunny doll, and you'll understand why it's so important to take care of the people we love. Little Claire smiles and reaches her tiny hands toward the doll, which is always present at these family gatherings. In a few years, when Claire is older, I'll hide some special letters inside a doll for her, Emma tells the family. What kind of letters? Anna asks. Letters telling our story. How it started with the courage of a little girl, how it was nurtured by the kindness of strangers, and how it grew into a network of love that has touched thousands of lives. What if she doesn't need the letters? What if her life is easy? Robert asks. Even better, Emma replies. That would mean she grew up in a world where no one has to sell dolls to get food. But even then, she'll need to know she comes from a family that never stopped believing in the goodness of people. Richard, now over 70 but still sharp and active, raises his glass of juice at the table. A toast, he says. To what? Everyone asks. To Mrs. Joan, Emma's grandmother, who had the wisdom to plant a seed of hope inside a rag doll. And to little Emma, who had the courage to water that seed with her determination. And to all of you, Emma adds, who turned that seed into a mighty tree that still bears fruit today. And to the next generations, Anna finishes, who will keep planting seeds of kindness around the world. Claire, who doesn't understand the words but feels the love in the air, claps her hands and giggles, bringing even more joy to the moment. That night, as she put Claire to sleep, Emma sang a song she had made up years ago. Sunny, sunny, Grandma's doll kept a secret just for us, taught us that true love is always our greatest treasure. Claire drifted off to sleep, soothed by the song and the gentle presence of the Sunny doll, which stood guard by the crib just as it had for Emma so many years before. And so, in a simple house in a modest neighborhood of New York City, an extraordinary family continued to prove that life's greatest miracles happen when ordinary people decide to do extraordinary things for one another. The Sunny doll remained there, no longer hiding secret documents but guarding something even more precious, the memory of how one brave child and two kind-hearted adults were able to turn despair into hope, hunger into abundance, and separation into unity. And how this transformation happens every day, in every act of kindness, in every helping hand, in every person who chooses to believe that caring for others is worth it. The end. Now, tell us what you thought of this touching story and where you're joining us from. If you have any experiences of kindness to share, leave us a heartfelt comment. Do you believe that people's goodness can truly change lives, just as it did for Emma? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for being here with us. Don't forget to like this story and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving tales.